Silence! Young man, you're in contempt.
Anything but. Your Honor, I am telling the truth. Michael Corinthos was not held out of court so he couldn't testify. He was kept away so he couldn't confess. He wasn't just a witness to Claudia's killing, he actually did it. And everything since that point has been a cover-up, starting with the defendant's plea of self-defense. I can prove it.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, but I cannot sit idly by while all the rules of judicial procedure are made a mockery of.
Your Honor, for once the prosecution agrees with the defense. This is just a last-minute effort for Detective Falconeri to grandstand. And I promise you, I'll have your badge for it.
Well, for telling the truth? I would think you'd be grateful. I saved you the career embarrassment of prosecuting what happens to be an innocent man, at least in this case.
You people need a dictionary. Silence means nobody talks but me until I say otherwise. Now, you violate that, you be prepared to make your home in a holding cell for the foreseeable future. Anybody want to call my bluff? Bailiff, take the jury back to the jury room. You are not dismissed. You are not to put credence on anything you've just heard. At this point, this is nothing but a fairy tale concocted for God only knows why, and I intend to find out. Now, don't talk about it. Go. I will hear objections. Prosecution first.
Detective Falconeri is a walking conflict of interest, Your Honor. He's the defendant's son, as evidenced by the fact that he's already lied under oath to this court to protect his father. And talk about fairy tales? Who can forget the whopper that Detective Falconeri spun about the Keystone cop who fumbled his gun and shot himself, when anyone with half a brain knows that Sonny Corinthos shot him at point-blank range?
You prove that, we'll have something to talk about.
I've already proved it in the second lie Detective Falconeri is telling. He is covering for his father again by trying to direct this court into a mistrial. And any proof he claims to have is yet another fabrication unless Michael Corinthos walks in here and confesses. Are you going to produce this witness? No, you can't, because you conveniently let him go. Your Honor, for all we know, the detective and Michael have cooked this whole thing up, and Michael is probably kicked back on some privately owned, mob-financed island, laughing his ass off at the rest of us, scrambling around trying to find justice for Claudia Corinthos, the actual victim here.
Sit down, Detective Falconeri. I'll hear from the defense.
Whatever you have to say, make it count.
Your Honor, Michael is deeply troubled, through no fault of his own. He sustained massive brain injury during an assassination attempt against his father and spent the next year in a coma. He underwent neurological surgery to bring him out of that coma, but the procedure had residual effects, and a once bright, sweet, sunny young boy has now been turned into a dark, withdrawn young man. The one thing that hasn't changed is his abiding love for my client. Michael would walk into oncoming traffic for his father.
I'm going to interrupt you for a clarification, Miss Miller. Are you objecting to a development that could exonerate your client?
My client does not wish to go free at the expense of his son, so his story still stands. Sonny Corinthos killed his wife in defense of Carly and Jocelyn Jacks, and any so-called confession by Michael is well-meaning but misguided 11th hour attempt at a save.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, did everyone miss the part where I said I've got proof?
You stifle yourself, Detective Falconeri. This is my courtroom. I make the rules. You don't come in here like some wild dog into a henhouse doing and saying whatever you want. Either you abide by my wishes, or I will lock you up and rule any evidence you may offer as fruit of the poison tree and toss it. Now, the Honorable Judge Peter Carroll calls you to the stand and admonishes you. This story better damn well be good.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Be seated.
Okay, Detective, you wanted the floor. You got it. Be convincing.
Now, believe me, Your Honor, I wouldn't be on the stand exonerating Sonny Corinthos on a whim. I built the case against him. I thought it was solid. I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment for finally busting the guy who's been wiping his shoes with the law forever and thumbing his nose at the rest of us. Sonny deserves to be locked up. But for something he did. And he didn't kill Claudia Corinthos. Michael did. And that poor kid has been living in a world of hell ever since.
Your Honor, I'm going to have to object. The witness is sermonizing. He hasn't produced a single fact or piece of evidence to support this ridiculous accusation.
Overruled. Though I agree, I haven't heard anything so far but a point of view.
So, why did you
I
overrule
already
it?
ruled. What happens when I rule, Miss Walsh?
Subject closed.
Now you're getting it. Let me make this very clear, just so there's no room for misunderstanding. Detective Falconeri is not a prosecution witness. He's not a defense witness. He's my witness, and I will question him as I see fit without interference from lawyers. You two got that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Got it.
Facts, Detective. What happened that made you believe that your accomplished investigation wasted everybody's time by focusing on the wrong perpetrator?
Through a conversation I had with Morgan Corinthos, I was able to ascertain that Michael was being hidden at the Copa del Oro Resort in the Caribbean, property owned by the defendant. I went down there to serve Michael a subpoena, still under the impression that he witnessed his stepmother's murder. I confronted Michael that way. He became angry and called me a smug, stupid cop who was basically obsessed with taking his father down. Then he laid it out for me. All the events leading up to Claudia's death.
I don't suppose you got this confession on tape.
Miss Walsh,
Your Honor, I'm sorry, but to have to listen to this...
that just cost you $500. Open that yapper again, you'll spend the night in jail. Go on.
To answer the prosecutor's question, no, I did not get the confession on tape.
But you mentioned proof.
I didn't believe Michael at first. I told him so. He produced a blood-stained shirt from his backpack. Said it was the one he wore the night he killed Claudia and that the blood was hers. I brought Michael back with me, sequestered him, and dropped the shirt off with forensics to be tested.
Was it put into evidence?
Number 1232 SD in the PCPD evidence locker.
Get that shirt over here.
Forensics confirmed the blood was Claudia's and the DNA was a match to Michael. His story matches the evidence and fits the timeline.
Yeah, I'll be the judge of that, but before I make a decision, I need you to be very specific, Detective Falconeri. What did Michael confess to? Exactly did he admit to hitting Claudia with intent to kill?
So, is this a negotiation? Or did I do something for you, you return the favor? Like maybe walk away and pretend you never saw me?
I can't do that.
No, somehow I knew you'd say that.
I have to turn you in. But I'd like to hear what really happened that night. From you. Not with Carly's spin or Dante's conflict clouding things. Straightforward from your perspective.
When you look back with perspective, it all ties together. Michael had been struggling since he came out of the coma. It was neurological damage, he had impulse control issues. I mean, he was an emotional, volatile kid. And that night set him off. I gotta admit, it was shocking when Sonny went off on Claudia the way he did. No one expected it. Everything seemed normal. 1 minute, everything was fine, and then the next, chaos. Claudia had Michael's pregnant mother at gunpoint. She was going into labor. She hauls her out of there, steals a car, goes God knows where. I mean, Michael wasn't the only one flipping out.
Jax brought me home. My dad showed up, wanted me to stay with him, and they got into this raging fight. You know, I stood there thinking, if I just come forward sooner and say it was Claudia who got me shot, none of it would be happening. So, you know, my head felt like it was gonna explode. And that's why I decided to take off. I didn't know or care where I end up. I mean, Canada seemed as good as a destination as any, so I I got in my car and I headed for the border.
Michael's driving along. He sees the car Claudia stole from the Metro Court. He knows it's hers because it's got the valet ticket. But there's no sign of Carly and Claudia.
So I yelled out for my mom. I was already afraid of what I might find. My mom had a risky pregnancy, and we tiptoe around her for months because any stress caused a stroke. So, and after everything that just happened, I felt scared for her.
Michael followed a track through the woods to a cabin. At first, he was relieved. Carly and Claudia had found shelter.
I made my way up to the door, and I heard my mom screaming.
Does it get hazy from there?
I wish.